Morning. Sorry, I'm just setting up my second monitor here.
Good morning. I just started recording, just so everybody knows.
Okay, great. Fix my situation. Okay, and the secretary is joining us?
She should be.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we had a specific time that we needed to be done with the agenda by the time she arrived.
I will double check.
Okay. Okay, so looks like we have, checking my calendar here, our new date for meeting, which is a Monday, so that we're not conflicting with possible late session night. So that would be Monday, June 21st, 5 to 6:30 p.m. I think we raised that one last time, or possibly through email. So hopefully, everyone got a chance to see that. If you have any particular conflicts and could raise them sooner rather than later, that would be good. But I know for me, that looks like a pretty safe date that I can save. And 5 to 6:30, and right now we have a pretty loose suggested agenda, which is just focused on, sort of talking about, as we have done, I think, in most of the recent meetings, sort of where do our recommendations stand, if there are any particular budget updates at that point. And then hopefully I would hope, really the bulk of the meeting could be focused on, having cleared that hurdle and being able to celebrate some success, not resting on that too long, but being able to what's next in terms of our work group focus, and where we're headed for the rest of the year, and setting ourselves up for, all that the deeper work that we have been talking about since the beginning. So that sounds good to me. Any suggestions or concerns or questions about June 21st and that agenda? Obviously, we have some work to do to be able to answer the question of what's next. So I would ask, obviously all of our chairs to be thinking about what would you be able to propose as a path forward for your particular work group at that time. And of course, just for our members in general, thoughts about how we can answer that question and set ourselves up for a productive next 6 months and beyond. Do you have any thoughts? Okay. All right. So try to keep that in mind. And as we go through our plan,
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Lockman. I think that June would be a good time to hear from our district superintendents how they are engaging stakeholder input around use of the American Rescue Plan funding, and how at that stage, how they intend to use the funds.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, they will all have obviously adopted rescue plan based activities for the summer and for the coming school year. So I think that's a great point. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that in terms of, as a superintendent, what that could look like for you, that you think we could ask of our?
I'm not going to preempt Secretary Bunting's presentation today.
I see.
My answer will be what they sent me the other day and I think so better suited to let her present what was shared with the latest round of guidance, and where we are from that point. I can comment a little bit for Colonial and the Newcastle Chiefs, because we've had some conversations. So
okay, great.
That's my non-answer to your.
That's a great non-answer. Seems promising though, so I like that. Okay, great. So we can touch briefly on the rest of the agenda. I can't see the whole box, but I'm assuming the secretary is here, so we want to through this. Good morning. So work group updates. Who do we have to report on where things stands for each of our working groups?
Can I ask a question, piggybacking off of Ray's suggestion? Is it also able to get some updates on some other initiatives that are kind of that go along with education? Like, for instance, yesterday I saw there was initiative from US DOE for internet services for people that received the Pell Grant, but then also K to 12, if you received reduced lunch, you were eligible for the $50 internet credit. And I forget what they called the name of the program, but it came out. I got an email about it yesterday, but some of those other education related initiatives.
I mean, so do you have the specific ones in mind? Because I'm guessing we could have a long laundry list of
So
initiatives.
just, I think the things that kind of support families with education and relate to the pandemic. So I guess the two that come top of mind are like the internet. And then I did just see that there was another, some type of update with the food. So like I know there was the PEBT cards, that there was money given back, but then I think I saw something that, whereas for the last round, it was for anyone that received SNAP benefits, but also if their school automatically had free, well, not automatically, but the whole school had the free and reduced lunch. But this round, I think I saw something that those people still qualify, but only for kids under 6. So just some of those things that families experience that relate to education, but there's been some like new initiatives or just trying to change. But if we kind of just were a little bit more up to speed on how we're helping support families wrapping around.
So federal, and I guess, you know, any additional or new state pandemic related initiatives that are touching the educational space.
Yes, because I get some of the emails federally as they're coming down, but I'm not sure, you know, where we are now. Like I said, I just got the one yesterday from USDA. So where are we as a state? And then, you know, for people that don't get those type of notifications, just the awareness that these programs are coming or are here.
I think we can make a note of that and see if we can do that in a manageable way. I'm sure there's probably a raft of them, but hopefully we can maybe bullet out some things just to raise awareness. And I'm sure the department and our superintendents can help us with that.
If you'd like, I can send you a list of just a couple, I think, that kind of go hand in hand with what we're working on.
Were you raising your hand to receive that list, Kelly? Kelly was raising her hand to receive that list.
Send it to me.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I see Chuck. Can't see if Aaron's here, but give us a brief status check on the settlement.
Okay, this one's easy. Status is same as last week.
Great.
We're still having a meeting on the 24th and it has all the stuff in it we said last time.
Perfect.
Which just quickly again is we're talking about some of the future things, the opportunity fund, teacher recruitment and retention, and the funding study.
Great, thank you. Okay. All right, so social determinants. Jeff and Ray are both here. Any updates? I know you guys had a meeting, I think it was on Monday.
Yeah, we had a meeting Monday. We had 2 presentations. We had DOE presented a 2-part presentation around developmental screening, as well as the IDA Part C, I think it was, the shifting from DHSS to DOE. The plan, just kind of some of the machinations behind it. It really gave a great overview of the complexities of the work that's about to occur, and kind of the breadth. The DOE team presents the scope of work in front of them and their desire to do it with fidelity and to continue moving forward with the early childhood education space thoughtfully for Delaware. So it was a really great presentation for a lay person who doesn't live in that space. I actually understood the entire thing, which is sometimes, you know, it gets kind of gobbledygook. Let's be honest. Yeah. People start talking this space and you don't understand it, and but I understood it, and I felt like it was a very well done presentation.
That's great.
And then we had Yvette Santiago presented from Nemours around the value of school-based wellness programs, specifically elementary. While it was probably a tad bit redundant for those who were on that subgroup in our committee, it was helpful for the broader group to kind of see the landscape from the perspective of the provider, the value to the community and the school and the students, and then the struggles that the providers kind of face with moving forward. So that was an equally informative session. And I think we're seeking feedback from the group now to have presenters continue to present and share and educate our group around the topics from our work group as well as the Writing Consortium. And I think our next meeting is June 10th. Don't hold me to that, Jason. If you give Kelly the correct date and time, that would be helpful. But I think it's somewhere around June 10th.
14.
Oh, 14th. See,
14th.
Thank you, Jason.
Well,
Like,
good timing, a week before our full body meeting. You know, if you guys have had some of these great presentations, maybe that's a good opportunity to kind of hone in your path forward.
Yep.
That we can talk about at the full meeting. So good timing.
Yep. That's all. That's all I have. Unless Ray, I know she's traveling, so she might be in. And if she had something to add, I'm sure she would have chimed in and corrected me.
Yes.
No, you did a great overview, Jeff. The only thing I would say is that I'm anxious to start delving in I guess it would be the fall at this point, delving into secondary education.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you mind if I add a couple of things, Dr. Mentor?
I guess, yes, the chairperson, I'm good. My report's done, so when we go over time, Senator.
I'll go
No,
quickly.
you are fine, John.
So yes, Yvette and other members of Department of Education did an excellent job in the presentation and sharing the early childhood information. And pardon me, Yvette did forward her presentation and I sent that to Jason. So hopefully if it's on the website, it will be soon, but it was quite informative, concise, easy to understand. So that's helpful to have that PowerPoint. And I have heard from Senator Sturgeon as well as Representative Williams that those two bills are being circulated. So they're to be filed today or Monday. And Senator Sturgeon is hoping to have the Part C bill on the Education Committee meeting on Tuesday, the Senate Education Committee meeting. So one thing to ask all of you is it appropriate or I think it would be appropriate to have Writing Consortium representation providing public comment in support of that legislation? Is that something that we've done historically?
I know that for the joint finance, for example, we said, look, we've got our recommendations are before joint finance and letting people know when that is occurring and encouraging folks to follow their own lead about going and weighing in. So I think we can certainly, Kelly, maybe send an alert about upcoming House Education meeting agenda to members.
Thank
Or maybe
you.
John, you could compose something that we could forward.
Well, and I'm waiting to hear back from Senator Sturgeon just to confirm that she gets it in time. So if it's not on this one, it would be, I guess there aren't meetings for the next 2 weeks after this. After next week, there aren't meetings for 2 weeks.
Right.
Then it wouldn't be until the end of May. So she's really trying to, or early June. So she is trying to get it in.
Yeah.
Be heard on Tuesday.
Yeah, we're getting down to the wire for this session. So I would suggest, Don, if you could compose just a brief note about what is being heard in committee that you think that members might be interested in commenting on, that I think that's something we could just forward.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. Yep.
Do we have Namdi or Eugene here this morning? I don't think we do. So we can skip that one and circle back in the interest of time. And okay, these are good notes for me. We've got our annual report that we do every year and the drafted support statement for the settlement work group motion. Okay, yes, that we agreed upon at the last meeting.
Yep.
Great. Okay.
You need me to resend it to Senator?
You can re-forward it so it's at the top of my inbox. That's always a good thing.
Totally
Okay.
understand.
Yes. All right. So that's helpful. Pardon me. And oh, right. As we mentioned last week, we are still looking for any recommendations on the main newsletter. We've been getting really good, if you recall from previous reports, really good engagement with those newsletters. And people seem to really appreciate notifications from sort of our membership related organizations, activities, and updates that are going on in the community relevant to the Writing Consortium's work. So if you have anything going on with your work or organization, or one that you know about that's doing things related to education recovery, equity in education, please do share those so that Alexis can put those in the newsletter. and 1 page on writing accomplishments. That's something that's in the works, right, Kelly?
Right, as soon as we know what's going on and what gets in, we can.
Yeah, that'll be our celebration of
Yes.
progress
Yes.
that we can build from. That sounds great. Okay, all right. So we have chugged through those as quickly as we could. Thank you, Secretary Bunting, for your patience. I think, is she here? Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Good morning. So now the floor is completely yours.
Well, thank you. And I will give you some basic information, and then any questions that you have, we'll try to tackle. I do need to make sure that we differentiate between 3 specific stimulus packages. I think sometimes we use ARP to cover the waterfront. If Tika's still with us? Yes, I see her up there in the corner. One of the things that we did with the State Department's money, and remember that in all 3 of these packages, 90% of the money coming to the state of Delaware for education immediately goes out to the districts, and it's based on their Title I counts. So 10% can stay here at the department, up to 10%. And we chose with our first package, with our CARES money, to highly invest, Tika, in that problem that we knew existed with the access to internet. So we put a huge chunk of our monies in spreading those systems throughout the state, particularly what we used to call internet deserts. We addressed those needs, and there were some in each county, but there were particularly severe needs in the western side of Kent and Sussex counties. So we also worked on an affordability package, and we've had great cooperation with some of the local companies to help us help the families that would not be able to have their children participate in the virtual learning opportunities until they had not just accessibility, but the affordability part taken care of. So hopefully that has continued. And again, our gratitude to the partnership with DTI and the folks that have enabled us to do that. In other cases where you couldn't connect or get the internet, we've worked with hotspots and Wi-Fi's and so forth, because our children needed to have access to the learning that they deserve to have. So that was our first package. And of course, then the second package came along, didn't have a cute little name like CARES Act, but the CRRSA monies were invested in a variety of things. And this money has come quickly. We are just getting into the projects that the department had laid out, and they vary, but you'll hear a lot right now about the accelerated learning plan for the summer to try to and offer the opportunities. And 19 of the 19 districts and 21 of the charter schools have accepted parts of this menu of types of summer learning activities that we've covered with our monies that remained here at the department. And we often offer, and then it's up to the individual local education agencies to participate in all of the things that we're offering, or some of them, and that's been a local choice. We do have, by the way, in-person summer school going on in most districts, as well as the opportunities that we have provided with our second set of monies. And we spread those monies across a variety of things, but the largest chunk has gone into providing the accelerated learning opportunities for the summer. We did a Facebook Live last night about it. We'll do another one next week to try to get to as many people. We're thinking of all the, I won't call them unconventional, but we know that not everyone is listening to a Facebook Live or reading what might be out there. So we're thinking about even door-to-door flyer distribution to try to get to the families that we want to make sure have opportunities over the summer to address some of the unfinished learning that their students didn't get to have this year. So that takes us to the third package, which is ARP. And that's what you actually asked about, but I wanted to make sure that you understand the difference. And honestly, our ARP plans are not due yet. The department's plan is due on June 7th. We firmly believe in communicating with our constituents up and down the state. We always, by the way, take that statewide view, knowing that districts will address things that are particular to their districts. Or if we're talking charters, what would be a particular for their population. But we think across the state because that's our responsibility as a state agency. With our American Rescue Plan monies, the state actually is getting about $410.7 million. 90% of that, as in the past, was in the process of going out to districts. One of the interesting things is 2/3 of that money will go out to the district before they turn in their plans. And then the final third of their monies will come after their plan has been submitted. So this, interestingly enough, this money will last us through 2024, which is a blessing. But the timeline for creating a plan and submitting it is much tighter than for the first two plans. So, so Jeff is working diligently to figure out what he's going to do with his money, and it's coming right on top of the summer learning ideas. Remember, we don't really know right now where our kids are functioning because we haven't seen some of these students for 15 months now. So we're trying to get a handle on exactly what it is that they do need and then think about that support. So locals, and Jeff can talk about what Colonial is doing. From the state perspective, we are very interested in our viewpoints, our stakeholders' opinions about how we might invest our rescue plan monies. We do have $41 million that will be designed in our plan. I need to qualify that a tiny bit. By federal law, 5% of the whole grant of the $410.7 million, 5%, which comes down to $20 million, $20.5 million, must be spent on learning loss. And so that comes out of our $41 million. And then also coming out of our $41 million will be a 1% of the total grant, which is another $4.1 million for summer enrichment. And this can go over summer this year, summer next year, summer through September of 24. And we also need to spend from our allotment, although it's 1% of the whole package, another $4.1 million for what they are phrasing as after-school programs. So this is money in addition to what the local districts are getting, the local LEAs as we call them. So add that together and you get about $29 million is already designated. It's already set aside out of our $41 million at the department. So we have another $12.3 million that we could do something beyond summer programs, the learning loss initiative and so forth. And we want to hear from our stakeholders. So we do have 3 questions that are out there. The Reading Consortium folks, I hope will please answer those 3 questions. There's a website that we have put out. I've tried to get this information. It's a 2-pager front and back. So it's one piece of paper to give you a little bit of an overview of what ARP is all about, but also to have us have you tell us in what ways that COVID has affected our students. And it mentions the academics, but also the social and emotional learning of our students. And secondly, how can we use our ARP funds to address those needs? And thirdly, it asks about how can Delawareans work together to make that happen and to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students. And that runs the gamut of anything that might be. So we are waiting to hear the results of those. The flyer says that today is the last day. We certainly will take anything that's entered in that on that website next week as well. But we do get to a point where we need to take a look at what the responses are so that we can then form the beginnings of our plan. We're going to meet on the 24th here at the department to look at all the results that are in at that point. And then we will begin spending day, night, and weekends putting our plan together because it's a huge plan and ours is due on June the 7th. But we desperately want to include views from our stakeholders. And I suspect a similar process is occurring at the district, at the local level in many cases. So that's a bit about our plan. Right now, our plan for ARP hasn't been written. And we do, as I said, we do want our plan to reflect what our public is telling us. So if you could take a few minutes and answer those 3 questions, we would very much appreciate that. And then we will go from there and maybe need to come back to a future meeting, Kelly, to show you what we have put into our plan based on that input. Similarly, as I mentioned, the same guidelines are there, and there is a list of about 15 things that this can be used for. For example, it can't be used for construction of a new wing of your building or something of that sort, but it certainly can be used to fix HVAC or completely replace HVAC systems. It can be used for, sanitation, mitigation types of strategies. It can be used for any kind of academic or social and emotional learning initiative. Just lots of things that can be, but there is a list. So the sky is not the limit, but we certainly can be creative and think through what it is that our public is telling us. And also, I was just on the governor's cabinet call. We need to remind everybody that sometimes something could be paid for out of state funds, but if we have federal money, we use the federal money first, and that gives us the opportunity to think differently about some of the state funds that we do have. So this is a one-time situation. With that, of course, comes the caution that you have to make sure you don't start something that then, if it's to be continued, would fall back on the district to support. So we always use that filter. We need to keep our students in mind as the key piece of what it is that we brainstorm and suggest. So I'll take any questions.
Dr. Bunting, are people still able to email the stakeholders' email address to give feedback?
Absolutely.
Okay, is that the process? Because I know I had previously received an email and it was a survey link and it closed on May 4th.
Okay, the one that we have out is May 14th. But as I said, we will still take any of that as they come in. But we had to have some kind, Tika, some date by which we hope most of it would be in so that we can start our work.
Okay.
But don't hesitate just because of the date.
Will they get funneled together? Because
Yes.
email came from the department with the May 4th. As a matter of fact, it said by 10 p.m. The survey closes at 10 p.m. on Tuesday, May 4th.
We'll
When
keep
I
it open
clicked
now.
it is definitely closed now.
The latest that I have talks about our meeting, and we will keep that open. So don't hesitate.
Okay.
And that there probably have been several iterations of that sheet, but we'll take it.
Internally, is there a hard and fast date after which you won't be able to incorporate any further feedback?
I would say that by the time we get to May 24th, that's the date that we've set aside as a retreat for our cabinet. It's not that we couldn't change something, but that only gives us 2 weeks. And there's a holiday in there as well. So we have a lot of writing and proofing to do in order to make that deadline at USDOE.
Okay. So maybe that's something we could share out. I don't know if we would have time to do that today, like on our Facebook page, and say today's the last day to do it, and then see if people want to respond.
Yeah, but if something sneaks in there, the website will still be open for a little while.
Okay. Kelly, you look like you had something you wanted to say.
I was going to ask where the survey lives. I can't seem to find it.
Okay, do you have?
I had the 2-pager.
It was
Okay.
a Survey Monkey and it's closed. I can put the link that
But really, it's just those 3 questions, and it can be directed to
Yes.
that email address, right? So we
It's
can
a
just post-
stakeholder. This one goes into stakeholder.feedback. It's a
Okay.
website at doe.k12.de.us.
Okay, I have that.
You have that. That's where.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Tika, that one should be able to take verbal messages, like sentences, as opposed to a typical survey that you have a choice of one of these 3. So you have the chance to do a narrative there.
great. Thank you.
Cool. All right.
Other questions? Jeff, anything to add since you're doing this at a local level? I'll give you that opportunity.
So thanks, Susan. And, I'm glad that Susan pointed out there are 3 variations of the stimulus and the support money that is rolled forward, and each have had their own kind of unique parameters solely focused on getting our buildings ready and or supporting families and or supporting students and staff in the educational space. And I can't speak for all the superintendents, but the second round was really helpful in Colonial and from what I hear in other districts about some of the life health safety systems that Susan was referencing, ventilation facility, improved infrastructure so that the classrooms were ventilating properly. I know that was a big focus of that funding when it came through, at least in Colonial and several of the districts that I've talked to in Newcastle County. I can't speak to everywhere across the state. Just this past week, we received, actually 2 weeks ago, we received we had a presentation from Susan and her team around the round 3 funds and the anticipated timeline for release of funds and various benchmarks that we're going to need to hit as LEAs. And one of those is coming up fast soon, as Susan referenced, the money, where the money is going to land, when it's going to land in the district's budgets or in our funding source, whatever they call that, is, I believe it's the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. And we will be utilizing the e-grant system to build our plan that's going to be submitted. Just like Susan's talking about the state's plan, we have a plan that's due. And from the document that we received this week, which is updated guidance, the LEA plans are due on August 23rd for this ESSER 3 funds. And the parameters are very similar to what Susan described for the state. There is a slight wrinkle in that our set aside for learning loss is 20% of the dollar amount that's out there. And so that's the only significant difference. The parameters around the funds seem fairly similar based on the documents I'm reading, unless, Susan, I've missed something that there's a significant change. The plan the guidance document does indicate that there needs to be stakeholder input and parent input in the development of our plans. We have an additional step that we have to get to before we get to that. We have to have by June 21st, LEAs are expected to have their safe return to school plans actually in a similar fashion, shared, public comment, feedback, and then due to DOE, that's really a fundamental underpinning of the path forward. So ideally, your safe return to school plan is going to be supported by the ESSER 3 funds. If you're kind of building out past summer, because like Susan said, summer has been pretty well, I don't want to say done to death with the other 2 rounds of funds and the support from DOE in the districts, but the summer is moving forward and seems to be well established in most places. If I'm speaking out of turn, I see Darrell on here. He can step in and correct me, but summer is like, we're looking past summer now. And so this safe return to school plan on the 21st is designed to be a template and a building block moving forward to continue to have face-to-face instruction, address learning loss, and maintain the environment that we need to provide those services to the community across the variety of platforms. So, the long and the short is, we received this guidance. Colonial had a school board meeting on Tuesday. The board was apprised of where we were, which was everything except for the guidance document that we got Wednesday morning that we resent to them, so they knew this is the latest guidance. This is where we're headed. So the districts are really very much, in my mind, mirroring the process that DOE is putting in front of us. They have some very nice guiding questions that they're using that help us frame up where we're headed. We have not scheduled any public meetings in Colonial yet, but I do believe Christina may have already scheduled a public meeting, and if Chuck's still on here, or I do believe that Christina had scheduled a series of public meetings already. So I anticipate those to start popping up across the state, and also similar kind of stakeholder engagement, Survey Monkeys, Facebook Lives. But I can't speak for everybody, and I can't even say that we would do Facebook Lives. It's really, to Susan's point, like, where's the needs, what's going on in our community. For example, Colonial, we are just wrapping up a strategic plan where we engaged our community around these topics moving forward. So we have a bucket of data and narratives and anecdotes and wants from the community that we're working on parallel to the pandemic, that mirror possibly where we want to head with the future in the short term up to 2024, where we have this funds available to us. So every district's in a little bit of different spot, but generally speaking, the dates are June 21 is a return to school plan. And then August 23rd is when we're expected to have our eGrants ESSER 3 plan submitted to DOE. I think that's it. Darrell, please jump in if I missed anything. Susan, feel free to correct or amend if I missed in a high level way, like if I missed a fine detail that's really important.
No, I think you did a good job, Jeff. And I think it helps to see the difference and the coordination between what happens at our level and then how it plays out in the districts or the locals.
It's really helpful, and to hear sort of that sequential, where you are in terms of planning, and is really helpful. I think I saw Darrell unmute.
Yeah, I was just going to say Jeff did a good job. The only other kind of thing that I would put on the radar is, obviously, to Dr. Bunting's point, other funds, whether that would be opportunity funds, various things that are actually happening on the state level that are aligned to the work, to Jeff's point. So just being strategic in how we maximize the use of these funds, so that we're not wasting, right? It's easy to just say we're going to buy resources and put up programs. And I think for our initial landscape scan, most people are seeking staff and support staff, and we have to be careful with that, especially as it relates to sustainability over the longer period. So how do we actually using it to build out the systems? But I think they both, captured, I think, where all districts are relative to the use of the federal dollars in conjunction with state dollars to support the ongoing needs, not of just COVID and the pandemic, but, social injustice, equity, all the other things and factors that are playing in learning recovery, especially for students with disabilities, the mental health piece. So that there's a lot that we have to take into context as it relates to maximizing the use of the funds, but they summarize it, I think, well.
So Darrell, you brought up a great point. Sustainability is actually as a fundamental underpinning of much of the conversation. I think, we learned with the race to the top efforts that, that one-time pot of money and, you get something and then, wait a minute, there were several lessons learned in that and a lot of LEAs. And one thing that I can tell you, like from Colonial's perspective, having the infrastructure to spend $30 million, like that sounds great, but like we're running a district budget on what we have right now. And to add the complexity to maintain the compliance, the transparency, the flow through. So really, to give you an idea of Colonial, we're looking at our current infrastructure in terms of our back of the house folks of how are we going to manage this when we start going live with the activities. Because that if we just start buying stuff, we are not going to be able to do stuff because we don't have the functionality of it. And so you want to pick what's sustainable that becomes part of your organization in the long haul. And it's a dance. And I don't think the timeline that's in front of us is daunting because many people were thinking about this to begin with. But I think from Colonial's perspective, I have to be very mindful of not wasting those dollars and not being inefficient with it, but that's going to require some infrastructure changes inside the house, or otherwise we're going to be in trouble. So that's in addition to the sustainability piece. So I just think throwing that out there is important.
And Jeff's point is we're talking, you'll hear us when we're on meetings now that are nationally with our CCSSO group, they're talking about the cliff. The cliff is when these monies stop coming, and if you've added a lot of staff members, you're going to have to get rid of them or pick all that up locally. So you have to look at how we continue to meet the dire needs of our students and get them hopefully back on an even keel over this relatively short timeline. If you think about it, 2024 at least gives us a couple of years, but we know that this will not be the unfinished learning and getting our kids to where they need to be to forever be on grade level will not happen all in this summer's work. So you have to think about that, but also how are you going to make the adjustment when the extras aren't coming?
Right. And in terms of sustainability, I guess the question that occurs to me, I feel like in the legislature, when we have some of the conversations we've been having about investments in education, personnel comes up a lot in terms of, well, are there even the people out there to meet these standards and things that we're setting? Is that something that's factoring into your planning?
Yes.
I'm sure you would love to have all kinds of staff, all kinds of things, but
I was going to give an example if you wanted like a concrete example from Colonial that probably might give an idea of what we're talking about. So we're getting $30 million in Colonial. $6 million of it has to go towards extended learning opportunities. Right now we have after school program, I have Y daycare, I have Saturday school, I have summer programming, I have ESY, and they're all over the place. They're being managed by about 10 different people who try to meet regularly to keep it going. We need somebody to bring all of that together, to focus the ones we already have on top of the 20% of this 30 million that we're going to add to it. So we have posted for a supervisor of extended learning opportunity because we need that in the district to begin with because of all the opportunities. So we're looking to establish that position. Now, Senator Lockman, to your point, that's a person. Obviously, it's going to come from potentially within because we have people who are doing this that might step into that spot, which is going to create a hole over here, which could be an AP, a student advisor, a lead teacher, which now the backfill becomes a teacher or another certified staff member in a different realm that you have to post for and fill. The teaching pool is getting very thin, if not dry. Like when there's you picture the oasis on the desert, and you like to think maybe there's a little bit of water. After what I just experienced this week, it's dry. It is really dry right now for teachers coming into the workforce. So we're thinking about that. Like, so you have to think of unique ways to address what the challenge is. And we're just at the beginning stages, but like staff is going to be a problem no matter what you pick. Summer programming, I don't even want to like finding teachers to work in the summer. I mean, I'm not, and it's not like casting aspersion on them. Like I'm not in any way passing judgment, but it's going to be a challenge. And here we are talking about addressing unfinished learning. We need people to do that. So we can create the best program possible. So it is a challenge, and I'm not going to say it's like a door closer, but it's going to be more of a challenge than people think.
Mm-hmm. I think Darrell was going to add to that too. That was really helpful, Jeff.
We're competing with ourselves relative to summer program. And so, again, I think just as much as we talk about what our students and families have lived, we have to be conscious about what our staff members, and especially our teachers, have lived over the past year. And so our special educators who typically support extended school year, ESY, for 12-month programming for students who haven't mandated in their IEPs, they now see an opportunity per se to actually work other non-traditional summer program offerings.
Yeah.
Because we had to incentivize it to provide per diem, right? To just get enough staff. So now it's like, all right, if I get my daily rate and don't have the compliance of an IEP, of the documentation, and I can kind of just generally work another summer enrichment learning recovery program, they're opting for that.
Yeah.
And now we're finding that we've actually created a hole
Yep.
our traditional program. So we're competing even within ourselves. And so one of the things that we're actually looking, and I know, is really building out our network through expanding, extending services through our partners. So with LACC, with FAME, we actually secured a Newcastle County grant for a Freedom School that we're going to establish at Warner to help with housing and transportation stipend for students from DSU. To really just try to find unique alternative ways to support programming, because again, a good problem to have to say that we have the funding, but systemically, building out the infrastructure to be able to absorb this amount of funding in a short period of time is a challenge that's before us. Because everyone has an idea how we should spend it. But again, we want to make sure that we're delivering on the intent. And so you'll likely see, positions being posted to help manage the infrastructure that's needed to ensure that we're supporting students and families and educators.
And there's programs out there like Darrell's point that are in this space of unique opportunity, like Summer CoLab, the United Way with some of their learning pod models. Like there's opportunities out there, but they're different. It's not the way we've normally done it. So there's other ripples that come in with interagency coordination, collaboration, and you need somebody who can navigate that space. And that's kind of like, again, going back to the colonials, like I need somebody who does that, because they're going to be doing that with a lot of different people and dealing with a lot of different compliance/regulatory issues that allow certain groups to interact with kids and do this and do that. So I think it is a great challenge and a good problem to have, to Darrell's point. So I think that's it for me.
I think we can meet that challenge, but I'm so excited because I have a real heart for the opportunity funding, but it did go through yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I've just seen such an impact of that program. But even there, as we add those extra support people, and we have a portion of the Student Success Block Grant that deals with social and emotional learning and so forth. And there again, we're taking some of our best people out of our teaching staff to provide those extra services, which makes us need more and more and more people coming through the pipeline. And they're not coming at this point. The count is way down. So we're very grateful for the money, and we're going to make the most of it for our students. But it is a work in progress.
I do see some opportunity though with the capacity challenges for some of our recommendations. So for instance, like in the Brandywine School District, where to address some of their summer challenging issues, they're utilizing their juniors and seniors that have applied and have interest in that, working with children to work with their preschool program age kids and coming up with other initiatives and programs that would be similar to use some of the money that can be planned out to 2024 could provide additional opportunities for our recommendations.
I totally agree. I mean, for example, the elementary wellness centers, there's a dollar that comes with that. And if you feel that an elementary wellness center can be a part of your recovery plan for your community and a school and meet certain needs based on the data you have, there's an opportunity it's seed money to start it. To Susan's point though, the cliff, like that's a big cliff to look at. But if it's an investment you make locally, it's an opportunity to bring something to the community that you couldn't have before if you're able to kind of build out a thoughtful plan that avoids the cliff. So I think there's tons of opportunities depending on how it's looked at. So I agree, Tika.
And if there's, I don't know, places where we can just also encourage more people to utilize some of our recommendations. And so to the point that now this time frame is coming upon us really quickly for this last round of money to plan out further out, those are opportunities where folks can look at our recommendations, the recent the recent early education inclusion plan, but a lot of these things that we have put out the pipeline more recently, but have not always had the funds to do. And there's such a large amount of opportunities out there now that I just get concerned that not everybody is aware of them and able to take advantage of them So I just hope that maybe the consortium or some type of updates through DE, we can help manage that a little bit better.
You're exactly right. And we do have a golden opportunity. The timing is just right to get some of these things put into place that honestly, we never dreamed we'd have the money to do. But we're really, really blessed right now with the money situation. So if there's anything we can do to help publicize some of the opportunities, just let us know. We're game for speaking to anybody who wants to talk with us. And when we do some of the public things too, if you can help us get the information out to folks. I just did send, Kelly, I just sent you, because I know Haley's away, the latest version, if there's anything that changed, but it also has a listing of the kinds of things that that money can cover.
So, I agree, Tika, and I think a little bit of it is Heart and Minds campaign that the consortium has developed a newsletter. They push it out. You have a little bit of a Facebook presence. I think the May newsletter, the June newsletter, perhaps revisiting just from a broader perspective what the programs or the initiatives were from the consortium and how they can meet the needs of the community through the lens of the ARP ESSER 3 bucket will get people's attention. I mean, and people will look at that. You've created a platform to push out the message. So now you have to Susan's point, like a great opportunity to kind of embed your efforts underneath this umbrella using the same language that's out there. That does kind of change people's hearts and minds versus, well, we're going to have a public hearing and I'm going to have to listen to somebody drone on a PowerPoint for 25 minutes. And, that kind of thing doesn't get people excited, but you get excited when you see something in a space that you have a passion for, and you can make that connection. So I think the foundation is there. It's just timing. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No. It's good. I know we're coming up on time. I do have a hard stop myself, but that doesn't mean we have to close the meeting. But any other questions and thoughts?
I on a separate topic, just want to give a shout out to Dawn because she did an amazing job yesterday presenting for ASQ and about our early childhood developmental screening recommendations for the consortium as well.
Thank you very much. That's kind of you, Tika. We had on the national call, we had people from, I don't know, almost all the states and Canada. It was pretty exciting. Thank you.
Awesome. Great job.
And DOE's done an amazing job of making it one system. So thank you for all that work.
Yes. Beginning to come together, literally and figuratively. Awesome. Oh, good. Okay. That was really helpful for me. I know it was a little unorthodox that we did do, sort of do the presentation in the context of planning. But I found it really helpful to get a sense of where we are with all these things. There just seems like there's so many different pieces flying around and there's so many technicalities. So hearing from you all really brings it to the ground a little bit more, and I appreciate that. Okay, well, if we have no other commentary, thank Secretary Bunting and thank our superintendents for also weighing in very helpfully there. And we'll go from there. And I think, Secretary, we will probably take you up on your offer to do a subsequent presentation when we start seeing the pieces get fleshed out. And so I think I don't know if we have anyone here who wanted to offer a public comment. You can comment in the chat to get our attention. You can raise your hand. You can turn on your video and we will be happy to hear from you. You're welcome to crash anytime, Darrell. Absolutely. Okay. And I don't think I see anyone who wants to comment, so I think we're in great shape for this week. Again, June 21st is the next date on the horizon that we are, hoping to be able to offer a good platform to talk about our next steps and direction, and hopefully our wins that we will have had by then. So do your homework, cross your fingers, and all that good stuff, and we'll see you guys next week. See ya.